So I'm waiting to see what's going on, especially when you talk about the church. Cost me speaking tongues that day. Glory be to God. I'm proud of you. And the Bahamian people are proud of you. Keep up the good work. The Bible said give your honor where honor is due. So when your time, I can be proud of you too. Some of who you talking about, I ain't looking at nobody. Amen. Let's read Psalms 91, just a little worse. Blessed are the unfaithful in the way who walketh in the law of the Lord. Say, blessed are they that keep his transgression, they that seek him with their whole hearts. They also do no iniquity. They walk it in his way. Let us pray. Bow your heads on your chest. Blessed assurance. Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine. Heir of salvation, purchase of God, born of his spirit, we are washed in his blood. God, we thank you right now, God, for your blood. We thank you, God, for your blessings upon us, God. God, and we thank you, God, for this gathering, God, and this another section of budget, God. God, we ask you, God, to be in the midst right now. We pray, God, for every members of parliament in this place. Anyone is sick among us, God, we ask you, God, to touch them right now, God, from the crown of their head to the sole of their feet. God, wash us, purge us right now. We decree and we declare over the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, great things, blessings. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen and amen. Our Father, thy will be done. Give us this day our daily bread, as we forgive those, and lead us not. May the peace of God be with you all in this place that passes all understanding.
Philip Davis, Chester Cooper, Fred Mitchell, Glennis Hannah Martin, Obadiah Wilchcomb, Alfred Sayers, Dr. Michael Darville, Clay Sweeting, Keith Bell, Wayne Monroe, Vaughn Miller, Jobeth Colby Davis, Ginger Moxie, Mario Boleg, Jomo Campbell, Basil McIntosh, Miles LaRota, Pia Glover Roll, Lisa Ramming, Zane Lightbourne, Dr. Hubert Minnis, Jamal Strawn, John Pinder, Marcus Roll, Leon Lundy, Kirk Cornish, Wade Watson, Leonardo Lightbourne, Leslie Miller Bryce, Leroy Major, Sylvanus Petty, Mikel Bonnaby, Michael Pintard, James Kwesi Thompson, Aram Lewis, Shannon Dawn Cartwright, Adrian Gibson, Adrian White.
Thank you very much. Good morning, honorable members. Before we go down the order of business, I would like to take this time to congratulate one of our house clerks who graduated on Thursday past with his Bachelor's of Law degree from the university. We say congratulations to you, Mr. Flowers. Well done. So there's prosperity and there's movement for the House of Assembly. Honorable members, I'd like to remind you at this time to turn off all of your cell phones as we get ready to go into the full budget debate. I look forward to a lively and provocative debate, one filled with love and respect. And we will now go down the order of business. Introduction and swearing in of new members, laying of documents by ministers, statements and communications by ministers, communications by the clerk, messages from the Governor General, messages from the Senate, motion for leave of absence, leave to resign, seat and new writs, presentations of petitions, presentations of reports of committees, adoption of reports of committees, first reading of bills, Second reading and committal of bills. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
Madam Speaker, I beg leave to move the second reading and passing of the several money bills laid during my budget communication. I'll just read the lead of them. And that is the appropriation, a bill for an act for the appropriation of diverse sums of money foreign towards deferring the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas on revenue account for the financial year commencing 1st of July 2022 and ending the 30th of June 2023. Madam Speaker, as is customary, the money bills that were laid are usually dealt with as a compendium, and the several bills were laid last week, and those would be the bills that I beg leave now to read and lay for the second time, for the second reading.
Thank you, honorable member.
Madam Speaker, before I commence my contribution in respect to these bills, I would just like to mark today, the 1st of June. This is the anniversary, that marked the anniversary of the Burma Road riots. That was 1942, Burma Road riots, where several brave souls
the beginnings.
stood up against the then oligarchs. Some lost their lives. There were 3 or 4. There is a parliamentary committee, commission of inquiry into that matter, which would make for good reading for those who would not have read it, to see some of the factors that attended workers in those days, particularly those of our hue. Madam Speaker, the annual presentation of a budget, accompanied by the several money bills that we laid, is one of the most important acts of any government. The budget for the financial year 2022-2023 is a budget that values fairness, a budget that promotes recovery, and a budget that invests in progress for our people. This is a budget that does right by the excellent people of Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador, whom I'm most honored to represent in this House, and a budget that does right for my fellow Bahamians across our islands. This budget reflects the values and policies of our blueprint for change. This budget is the best way forward for our nation. Madam Speaker, Bahamians deserve honesty about the nature and extent of the challenges and obstacles we face. Bahamians deserve compassion and support as families struggle to weather not one, but several overlapping crises. Bahamians deserve opportunities to make the most of their God-given talents, and the opportunity to thrive and to pass on a better life to their children. Most of all, Bahamians deserve a path which leads us forward to a brighter future and a brighter tomorrow. My communication 1 week ago laid out the substance of our budget. Today, I will share more of why we believe the choices we have made give us the best opportunity to help Bahamians today while we build that better tomorrow. Madam Speaker, the truth is we don't face a single crisis or emergency. We face many. Dorian is still an open wound. It is a tragedy from which we have not yet recovered. If you have any doubts, go and see for yourselves. Visit Abaco, visit Grand Bahama, particularly East Grand Bahama. Every day is a living reminder. Those who do not live on these islands may find it easy to put it out of their minds. But the reality is that the trauma has not healed. The pain of Dorian is still very real. Madam Speaker, the pandemics, lockdowns, and curfews left our already hurting economy reeling. The war in Ukraine has disrupted energy and commodity markets, adding to supply chain woes and leading to the worst global inflation we have seen in decades. The world's problems have washed up on our shores, reaching every family on every island. Although we face severe fiscal constraints, we also have needs that cannot be postponed any longer. Bahamian families need help with the skyrocketing cost of living now. Our healthcare system needs strengthening now. Our children didn't get the education they deserved during the pandemic. They need our attention and support now. The most important thing we can do, of course, is grow our economy. A stronger and more inclusive economy will create new jobs, lift our families up, and give the country the revenue and resources needed to make progress on our most intractable problems. That's why I'm going to share our plans to strengthen tourism, diversify our economy, create new opportunities, and make sure more Bahamians are included. But first, I want to say more about Hurricane Dorian and the hurricanes that preceded Dorian and the hurricanes still to come. Madam Speaker, today, 1st of June, marks the official start of hurricane season. And as always, the communities impacted by Dorian are on my mind. During Dorian, there were some Bahamians, far too many, who lost everything and everyone precious to them. In these cases, we feel acutely the limits of what we can do. We can move people into new homes, but we cannot heal broken hearts. Hurricane Dorian caused more than $3.4 billion in damages and losses. $3.4 billion, Madam Speaker. And before Dorian, in 2019, there was Irma in 2017. And before Irma, There was Matthew in 2016. And before Matthew, there's Joaquin in 2015. In the 7 years since Joaquin, our country has suffered more than $4.2 billion in damages and losses. $4.2 billion in just 7 years. I know many Bahamians are frustrated that our country is weighed down by debts that only seem to grow in size. Each hurricane causes terrible destruction, and each hurricane leaves us deeper in debt. And we aren't only paying for past hurricanes. When our country borrows money and creditors look at our ability to pay back, they price in our climate risks. They price in our climate risk and our vulnerability to future hurricanes. They know what the scientists know, which is the real likelihood that Dorian is no longer a once-in-a-generation storm. Warming seas means hurricanes will be more frequent and more intense. So the money we borrow to recover each storm is more expensive because of storms that haven't even been formed yet. Madam Speaker, I don't know how to say it more plainly than this. This is not right. It is not right for our small, beautiful country to pay such a heavy price for carbon emissions of the world's largest and wealthiest nations. It is not right that our debt grows more expensive when they fail to make enough progress meeting emissions targets. It is not right that we are caught in this terrible cycle of tragedy, followed by deeper indebtedness. It is not right that we face an existential threat from rising seas. So what can we do about it? Well, one thing's for sure. This is not something that can be solved if we pretend it isn't happening. This is not something that we can solve alone. Other countries are in similar position. If we come together, and only if we come together, we can begin to hold the world's largest carbon emitters accountable for promises made, but not kept. We can work to create financing mechanisms and opportunities for recovery and resilience, and we can be at the table when climate policies are made. Madam Speaker, the future is not yet written. And we cannot allow other people to determine our country's destiny. We need to be in the rooms where the most consequential decisions are being made. We need to build the relationships that make strong coalitions for change possible. When I meet with leaders of other countries, I bring with me in my heart the Grand Bahamian lady I met last year who lost 3 children and a husband in Dorian. My job is to fight for her. I bring with me all of our children who deserve to grow up in a country that is not trapped in an endless cycle of climate-related debt. My job is to fight for all of us. We have only been in office 8 months, but our leadership on this issue is already being felt and recognized. In fact, Madam Speaker, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change has asked the Bahamas to host leaders from around the region this August to prepare ourselves for COP27 to be held later this year. I'm grateful for the business the regional conference will bring our country. It will generate significant opportunities and revenue. While they are, I'm looking forward to, while they're here, I'm looking forward to leading the discussions on how countries in our region can work together for the greatest impact.
Solidarity.
Again, Madam Speaker, young people have been at the forefront of climate activism, which is heartening. I'm so proud that next month, again, leadership in this area. I'm so proud that next month we will be hosting the very first Bahamas Conference of Youth on Climate Change at the University of Bahamas. Yes. This exciting event will bring together young Bahamians with their counterparts from other countries around the world to discuss innovative climate solutions. This event comes on the heels of the One Young World Youth Caucus, which we hosted earlier this year, along with the University of Bahamas. They are returning to the Bahamas in July, as they have decided to hold their General Assembly here. That's the General Assembly of the Young World Youth Caucus on Climate Change. So they'll be here. For our own, what we're going to do, we're holding a contest to sponsor 2 Bahamian students from each of our islands to attend this conference. This is in addition to the 2 climate youth ambassadors we have previously appointed. Madam Speaker, these people decided to come here because they see our serious commitment to leading on this issue. When it comes to climate change, here's what is at stake for the Bahamas. Our safety, our solvency, and our survival. They are all at stake, Madam Speaker. And as I reminded the world at COP26 in Glasgow, countries like ours are out of time. Unless we change, unless we are supported by the carbon-emitting countries to rebuild for resilience, we will not be able to outrun the impact of climate change. Without change, if we are lucky, we will become refugees. Bahamians will become refugees. Without change, if we are unlucky, then we will be left to the mercy of future hurricane torrents. People will be forced to flee, but flee to where? So, Madam Speaker, I will never stop fighting for justice and progress on this issue. And I want Bahamians to know we are just getting started. In case it isn't clear by now, I don't agree with my predecessors' home alone policy, a policy of failing to show up in the international arena in a meaningful way. Home alone means the Bahamas doesn't have a voice. We are stronger, Madam Speaker, when we stand together with other countries on the front line of climate change.
It's part of our national vision, man.
And it's not just this issue where we must engage internationally. Whether it's high carbon emissions, highly transmissible viruses, or high prices, these issues have no regard for borders. The world's problems quickly become our own. Let me give you another example. In multiple settings, I've been engaging very senior U.S. authorities about the number of guns that are coming into this country.
That's right.
They may be sold legally there, but they are illegal here.
We can have
More than 90% of the guns we confiscate can be traced back directly to American manufacturers and gun shops. Guns, drugs, organized crime, these are problems that require us to advocate for increased resources and joint coordinated action and enforcement. When we participate, when we engage, when we build relationships, we have the ability to have an impact on policies which affect Bahamians in fundamental ways. Sometimes we need to travel to engage, and sometimes the world comes to us. For example, ahead of this month's Summit of Americas, I recently hosted a congressional delegation from the United States here, led by Representative Maxine Waters, the chair of the House of Representatives Financial Service Committee, to discuss carbon markets, digital assets, bank de-risking, and the gun problem, among other issues. I also hosted the Deputy Secretary of State, Mr. Brian Nichols, to discuss the same issues. They came here. Engaging internationally isn't just about tackling shared problems and challenges together. It's also about building the kind of bridges that result in mutually beneficial new opportunities and joint action, from commerce to scholarships and to the sharing of expertise. Madam Speaker, I've shared some of the reasons for the deep crisis we face. More intense hurricanes, a terrible, terrible pandemic, the global inflation caused by war and supply chain disruptions. All of these have added to the volatility of today's economic landscape. But while we may not be responsible for these external shocks, we are responsible for how we respond to them. The financial year 2022-2023 budget is our response. A response that balances the need to pay down our debts, the urgency of helping Bahamians now through these tough times, and the moral and pragmatic imperative of investing in our country's growth, resilience, and strength. It's a stark contrast with the budget presented here in this place 1 year ago. That budget kicked the can down the road, postponing the hard decisions. It was a recipe for stagnation, not progress. Now, I have no intention of spending too much time talking about the administration that came before us. Bahamians are acutely aware of their shortcomings, and they have already delivered their verdict. Very emphatically, Bahamians hired us to fix the messes that were created, but also, Madam Speaker, to learn from the mistakes and the failures so that they will not be repeated. The choices made in government matter. Indeed, as we constructed this budget, we were very much living with the consequences of the decisions made by our predecessors. To provide a little context for where we find ourselves as a country, consider the following. In 2017, a shock, 60% increase in VAT to 12%, slowing down our economy as we warned that it would do. Lockdowns and extended nonsensical curfews during COVID hurt Bahamian businesses of all sizes. The ill-advised purchase of the Grand Lucayan cost Bahamian taxpayers more than $150 million. The failed response to Hurricane Dorian slowed recovery in Grand Bahama and Abaco. Opportunities to borrow at lower interest rates were missed, making our debt more expensive. Poor spending decisions, like $20 million on sidewalks, didn't invest in our future. And under the previous government, there were unprecedented levels of borrowing, about $2 billion a year, without a single new school, not a single clinic, airport, major road, hospital, or housing development to show for it. Not one. No, not one. Not one house.
Not one.
And borrowing $2 billion per year. I know that this recitation of recent history is painful for my colleagues opposite, as it is for all of us. I find it painful.
More painful for us.
I hope for their own sakes. I hope for their own sakes. They are wise enough to sense that Bahamians are in no mood for excuses or revisionist history. Certainly not from the same crew who masterminded the Oban fiasco. Their advice on fiscal matters too should also be taken with a grain of salt, or better yet, all the salt in Inagua. Their revenue projections never panned out. Their revenue projections never panned out. Their revenue projections never panned out. Not once. Not once. Not once. Nor are there many Bahamians willing to hear a single word from them about transparency
The chair
or
recognizes
accountability.
the honorable member for East Grand Bahama.
Again, Madam Speaker, I did not want to interrupt the Prime Minister in such an important occasion, but we would not want the public to be misled. The projections in revenue projections for this very same past year actually exceeded the revenue projections. So for the Prime Minister to say that we've never met a projection, this past year, the revenue projections have exceeded.
Thank you, honorable member.
Well, I'll just respond by saying this. The member speaks only about this year. He doesn't speak about the other years. So thank God for September 16th. Thank God for September 16th, 2021.
And all the changes that came.
And so he can now stand and brag that the projections were not just met, but exceeded. But thank God for September 21st. What did you say? September 16th, 2021. I say no more than that. All right? Their advice is no matter. So that tells you, you know. I just want to say, you know, many Bahamians, I don't think any of them want to hear a single word from them about transparency or accountability. These words were invoked repeatedly in nearly every one of their public utterances, as if these words themselves were magic, as if saying them enough times would somehow release the speakers from the responsibility of actually being transparent or accountable. Madam Speaker, I'll leave that there. We have conducted a number of audits and investigations in order to give the people an accounting of how their money was spent after Dorian and during the COVID-19 state of emergency. This was required by law for the government to have done, and they never did it. So we're just following the law. So with these things, we're following the law to have these accounts done. As we have detailed in this House, our efforts have in too many cases been frustrated. In addition to serious irregularities, many records and accounts are either missing or never kept in the first place. Today is about looking forward, not backward. I do not want to spend today reviewing these issues in any detail. I'll merely share a piece of advice with the architects of those schemes some of whom appear to think attitude and bluster are a replacement for clean books and sound accounting. You know, I wrote a letter to the then Prime Minister. This letter was dated the 18th of July. And 2017. Shortly, not too long after they formed government.
What's his name again?
The Honorable Hubert A. Minnis, Prime Minister.
Is he here?
No, he's not here today. And I noticed they moved his sign from near Marco City. They trying to separate you all again, man. Tell them don't do that. Right.
That's when Ingram got them together.
Yeah. I was telling him in this letter, and I won't go into the details and the circumstances yet as to why I wrote the letter. I told him, when you dig one grave, you dig two. Well, I got another bit of advice. When you are in a hole, stop digging.
When you're in that grave.
When in a hole, stop digging. I leave it there. And I said, as I said, let me put it in the context in which I'm saying that. Right? The architects of those schemes, with respect to the spending during Dorian and the pandemic, some of whom appear to think attitude and bluster are a replacement for clean books and sound accounting. The advice: when you are in a hole, stop digging. Now, as for their sudden discovery of the middle class and the poor, now that they are in opposition,
Yes.
no one has forgotten that one of the first acts of the previous administration was to give tax breaks
Yes.
to businesses
Yep.
with more than $50 million in turnover.
Ain't say nothing. Not a word.
In fact, one or two of the persons impacted by that, say he didn't know why he gave it to them. But then he went as far as to say how much that meant to him, to his bottom line. But he said he didn't even know.
Not a word.
Not a word. And so you're talking about the poor and middle class. And then
No credibility.
when the poor, though, complain about their taxes,
Yep.
like the 60% hike in VAT,
Not a word.
not a word, nothing was done. But when the rich,
Well, they fired Vaughn Miller.
Don't forget the firing.
all right, but when the rich wrote, when the rich wrote to complain about their taxes, the very next day,
One letter.
their tax increase was
One
reversed.
letter.
And that letter came from somewhere out west.
Out west. Very, very out west.
No one has forgotten. No one has forgotten the special deals for special insiders.
Not a word. Right there.
See, and as the member for East Carolina reminded me, thank God for September 16th. Before the 16th of September general elections, the facts disclosed to the public were as follows. During fiscal year 2021, government net borrowing totaled $1,743.8 million to meet budget shortfalls. During the fiscal year 2021-2022, government net borrowing again exceeded $1 billion. It totaled $1,220 million, again to meet budgetary shortfalls. By the end of June 2021, the nation's debt to GDP was estimated at 101%. Bahamians did not wonder why the former government chose to hold a snap election many months before the end of their term and during one of the worst COVID surges in the country had seen.
Thank God they did.
They didn't wonder because Bahamians believed. And I agree that the former government intended to raise taxes on Bahamian families as soon as the voting was finished. As you know, we worked hard
That ain't work though.
to avoid doing that in this budget. What is important and what is undeniable is that priorities matter and compassion matters. And as we see over and over again, competence, more importantly, competence matters. Competence truly matters. Madam Speaker, we believe in facing hard problems, not running from them. I'm going to share just a little of what we have accomplished in the first 8 months, because our new budget builds on these foundations. When we came to office 8 months ago, we knew that taking a more balanced approach to our economic and health challenges was crucial. So we lifted curfews. We ended the emergency orders. We reopened the economy so Bahamians could get back to work. We introduced free COVID testing and distributed free medical grade masks. We ended the travel visa fee for Bahamians. We paid nurses, doctors, teachers, and public sector workers what they were owed. We increased pension support to our seniors. We reopened schools. We started building homes right away, with the result that it was my privilege to give out keys last week to new homeowners in Pine Crest Development.
You said 8 months? You said 8 months?
8 months.
8 months? In 8 months? 8 months?
In 8 months, right? Madam Speaker, after a long period with no home construction by the government, affordable homes are now being built in New Providence and Abercrombie. And in Grand Bahama, Madam Speaker, there's hope for the first time in a long time.
Yes.
We have a world-class buyer for the Grand Lucane Hotel. The previous administration bought the hotel against all advice and started pouring millions of taxpayer money into it, even as Bahamians across the country were suffering during the lockdowns. Then they tried to sell to the Bahamian people a truly terrible deal. A deal for only $50 million. A deal in which the Bahamas would have been required to spend an additional $100 million in cash concessions over a period of 12 years. We knew Bahamians deserved better. And as the member from Exuma will tell you in more detail, we have delivered better, much better. Thank God for 16th of September. Our country will be receiving $100 million for the purchase of the hotel. And the Grand Lucane will become a sustainable luxury resort. That's 2,000 construction jobs, Madam Speaker, and 1,000 permanent jobs. So along with this Grand Bahama now, the construction of the $200 million new cruise port, and a public-private partnership underway for the redevelopment of the Grand Bahama International Airport, and substantial progress being made on the new hospital, the future is finally looking brighter in Grand Bahama. In fact, I want to take a moment here to tell you about CoLab, run by our very capable Minister for Grand Bahama. CoLab was motivated by the recognition that the government can be much more effective when we act in concert with others who also have a stake in the recovery and development of Grand Bahama. Meaningful partnerships lead to meaningful change. So we are partnering with the private sector, with nonprofits, with churches, and with civic groups, amongst others. Collaboration in a shared vision for a place we all care about, that's how we make progress. Madam Speaker, in the first 8 months, we have worked to lay down a strong foundation for change across our islands. Sometimes this required legislation, but there are other ways to build positive change too. Sometimes we are most effective on behalf of Bahamians when we engage in constructive dialogue. Here's an example. At the end of January, I had a meeting with the management of Freeport Container Port. During the meeting, I shared with them my concern and disappointment that the practice of hiring Bahamians as casual workers rather than employing them as permanent staff was having a large and negative impact on those workers and for those workers as casual workers. And this seemed to be the trend in Bahamas. The casual workers had no security, no benefits, no leave, no ability to enter into credible credit arrangements. So we talked about it. And I want to publicly now thank Freeport Container Port and hold them up as a model for others in Bahamas and others in the private sector across our country. Because they came back to see me this week to say that as a result of my advocacy and our dialogue, they have made substantial progress in converting a number of casual workers to permanent workers. When we met in January, 43% of their staff complement were casual laborers, casual workers. That number has now been reduced to 25%. And they intend to reduce it further. These workers now have increased take-home pay, increased job security and benefits, including access to credible financing. As a casual worker, they couldn't go to the bank to borrow money to put a roof over their head. Right? It brings stability to life. Upward one's life fulfillment or upward mobility towards fulfillment was stunted or robbed because of being hired just as a casual worker. This, Madam Speaker, is what socially responsible corporate leadership looks like. And I want to commend the leadership at Freeport Container Port. This is what a positive, productive partnership between government and the private sector looks like. This is what competent, compassionate leadership looks like. Madam Speaker, economic dignity. Economic dignity is a guiding principle for me. Everyone matters. We all want to live lives of purpose and meaning. We all want to take care of the people we love. No one who reflects on God's love for all of us could believe that the size of our dreams for our children should depend on the size of our bank accounts. This is why partnerships and dialogue and collaboration matters. We all have a role to play in knocking down barriers so that everyone can participate meaningfully in our economy and in our civic life. And whereas complete economic equality may be impossible, complete economic equality may be impossible, what is achievable and morally compelling is to protect everyone, or protect for everyone, the most natural equality that binds all of us as human beings. The right to the greatest choice in life, the births of one's children, the companionship of loving partner, the love of family and friends, and the lifting up of human fulfillment. The joy of seeing your child grow up, graduating from high school. Those are the natural, that's the natural equality. The rich man, who's the billionaire, that's his joy. The janitor, the janitress, that's their joy. And we ought not to be robbing that from the least amongst us. We need to protect that natural equality. And we do that by engaging and allowing people to understand what they're doing to our people. For example, that's what we have done with casual workers in Grand Bahama. And again, I thank Freeport Container Company for joining us in understanding that principle, which I find that guides me of economic dignity. I know that the minister from Grand Bahama will speak more to that because she was in these meetings with me. Madam Speaker, one of our goals in this government is to move towards a tax system that is more efficient and more equitable. We have already begun ensuring that a greater share of our revenues will come from those who can afford to contribute more with our revenue enhancement unit, which is particularly focused on increasing the yields on our real property tax. Another example is the amendments we have tabled to the Boat Registration Act to make it clear that foreign yacht charters are subject to VAT in this jurisdiction. This is an important step as Bahamian-owned charter operators have to pay business license fees and have to charge VAT, plus immigration fees for any foreign crew members. The playing field is now level. We are watching this sector closely. Too often, Bahamian operators are disadvantaged, often with the tacit approval of marina operators who benefit from foreign yacht charters. To increase participation in our economy, Madam Speaker, we do need to diversify our economy. In our first 8 months in office, we have accelerated investments in the agricultural sector to improve food security and create new opportunities for Bahamians. We have relaunched our Spots in Paradise initiative to diversify our tourism product. We passed a merchant shipping bill to promote the Bahamian shipping registry and industry, created a partnership between the Bahamas Maritime Authority and the LJM Marine Academy to offer more training opportunities for Bahamians in the maritime sector that will lead to guaranteed jobs on the cruise ships, the many cruise ships that call on our ports. We passed legislation to allow the Bahamas to be the first country in the world to trade blue carbon credits, meaning the Bahamas will earn revenue for protecting and restoring our mangroves and seagrasses and other what I call carbon assets. I spoke earlier about the threat of climate change and the importance of advocating for our country and other small island nations. The injustice of climate change is that often those who emit the least are paying the highest price. What happens in high emissions countries doesn't stay in high emissions countries, and we ought to take note of that. One of the reasons I made legislation for carbon credits an early priority is that conserving and restoring our seagrasses and mangroves is a way for the Bahamas to be part of the climate change solution in a way that has both environmental and economic benefits for our country. The new legislation establishes a framework that allows high carbon emitting countries to buy credits from us, compensating us for the role our country can play and is playing in removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. It is not just countries. There's also the voluntary carbon market in operation right now, which allows companies to offset their emissions even beyond what is required legally. Many companies around the world have been directed by their shareholders to engage in more environmentally friendly practices. In fact, 1 in 5 of the world's 2,000 largest publicly listed companies have committed themselves to a net zero emission target. It is no small thing that we will be the first in the world to trade blue carbon credits. This is an innovative policy that will bring in much needed revenue, and I look forward to giving the Bahamian people updates as we engage in this exciting new territory. I conclude this portion of the contribution, which because of time constraints details only some of the highlights of the last 8 months, with the following reflection. We can be proud of what has been achieved, while simultaneously being aware that it is never enough. The last few years have had a terrible impact on Bahamian families. We know how badly people are hurting and how urgently they need relief and opportunities. It is with these families in mind, Madam Speaker, we constructed this budget. It is perhaps good fortune that in the past I was both a mechanic's helper and a carpenter's helper, because in the Bahamas, a lot of things need fixing and a lot of things need building. We need to fix a tax system that is collecting enough from the people who can most afford to pay. We need to build an economy in which opportunities are more widespread, more inclusive, and more enduring. It is also very clear to me that the high cost of living is truly an emergency. The necessities of life are too expensive for almost everyone. In truth, the cost of living was too high even before the global inflation crisis. But now we are in new territory. Food prices alone have gone up 20% since last year. The cost of everything keeps going up, but paychecks, for those lucky enough to have work, are not keeping pace. That's why the first priority of this budget was to put in place a package of measures to help Bahamians cope with inflation, including multiple reductions in import duties, funding to increase enforcement of price controls, an increase in the minimum wage in the public sector, with incremental increases beginning next month, the establishment of a contributory pension plan for public officers, the reintroduction of RISE, a conditional cash transfer program, a new catastrophic healthcare program, a substantial investment in making home ownership more accessible, the establishment of the Universal Service Fund to make technology more accessible and affordable throughout our islands, significant investments in agriculture to increase the nation's food security and reduce our food import bill, a 10% increase to NGOs, a 50% increase in social service assistance compared to pre-pandemic levels, a salary increase for teachers, and a retention bonus for both teachers and nurses. Madam Speaker, in my communication last week, I praised the efforts of Bishop Walter Hansel and Bishop Lawrence Rowe, who have provided meals throughout the pandemic and talked about the new budget allocation to support their commendable efforts. To my great regret, I omitted the important work of Reverend C.B. Moss in the Bain and Grantstown community. All three of these gentlemen have worked tirelessly throughout this crisis to feed Bahamians, and did so until now without support from the government. Their organizations will all receive grants in this new fiscal year. Madam Speaker, another issue which has arisen is our commitment to improving the salary and benefits of public officers. To the labor leaders who are seeking to conclude contractual agreements, you will find our approach very civil and constructive. Yes, there will be a back and forth, but that is part of the negotiation process. In the previous 4.5 years, prior to us coming into office, there was no dialogue, only confrontation. We are seeking to change that. And this upcoming budget sets the framework for this relationship to change. Madam Speaker, the chief drivers of inflation, global supply chain problems, the war in Ukraine, U.S. monetary policy, cannot be addressed by the policies we make here in Nassau. But what we can do is bring down the costs. We do control, work to make sure those savings are passed on to consumers, put a little more money in pockets, and plan for the medium and long term so we reduce our vulnerability in the future to global conditions. Let's start with the reduction of customs duties on nearly 3 dozen food items. The goal here is to include many of the most frequently consumed foods, like eggs, chicken parts, flour, cheese, and corn, and to make healthier foods less expensive too, including broccoli, carrots, spinach, cucumber, beans, and cabbage. We have included funding, Madam Speaker, for new enforcement personnel at the Price Control Commission to make sure the savings are passed on to consumers.
Not a 60% increase in tax on poor people.
We have increased social assistance, as I said, by 50% in comparison to pre-pandemic levels. And RISE, a conditional cash transfer program, will provide additional assistance with requirements to participate, including ensuring that children in the household keep up with school attendance and medical checkups. NGOs play an important role during a time of crisis. So we want to do what we can to help their resources stretch a little further. Therefore, all property owned by religious organizations, trade unions, civic organizations, and business society, not business, burial societies, that's burial societies, will now be exempt from the payment of real property tax. This is no small thing. This is very substantial relief for labor unions and others. Madam Speaker, healthcare costs are rising along with everything else. And Bahamians who suffer chronic diseases are particularly impacted. We have allocated $10 million for catastrophic healthcare in our budget, which means the government can provide some assistance to long-term dialysis patients, heart patients, and others facing serious medical issues.
Yes, sir.
Along with food and healthcare, housing also ranks as a necessity. So as soon as we came into office, we started planning and building affordable housing. I noted earlier how gratifying it was to hand over keys to new homeowners last week in the Pinecrest subdivision, which will include 47 new homes. The smiles on the faces of the new homeowners were about as big as smiles get. We all know that's because a house is so much more than a place to lay your head at night. And I want to congratulate The Minister for Housing, she's back, for a wonderful job and her tenacity in getting things done. See, home ownership can help families achieve economic security. So as part of a larger plan to construct affordable housing, we recently announced a $20 million public-private partnership for the mixed residential development invested in New Providence called Renaissance. It's a question whether it's Renaissance or Renaissance. It's Renaissance, Carmichael. Renaissance. And again, the member for Elizabeth is doing such a tremendous job in this area. Again, I take a hat off because we've been in office for 8 months, but in 4 months, see the number of houses that's popped out of the ground, and they popped it out of the ground in Pinecrest. They pop it once again. The houses are popping once again. Now, our budget also includes multiple new measures to help Bahamians looking to become homeowners. We are expanding concessions for the first-time homeowners, reducing the duties on building supplies, like roofing materials, plumbing materials, and electrical supplies, and increasing the level of exemption for first home buyers from $250,000 to $300,000. In addition, we are reducing VAT on property transfers below $1 million for individuals. Madam Speaker, taken together, these measures, from the reductions in food tariffs to support for medical patients and new homeowners, reflect how urgently we believe Bahamians deserve help to cope with higher prices. These measures reflect our belief that it's important to help Bahamians right now, despite the very serious fiscal restraints we face. None of these measures are a magic bullet, but they will help. We are moving in the right direction. Madam Speaker, Bahamians understand that skyrocketing prices originate outside of the Bahamas, but that isn't the end of the story. Even as we help people during this short-term crisis, we can do more to plan for the medium and long term. In particular, there's so much we can do to increase our country's food security. You know, it was on Cat Island that I first saw for myself that farmers who feed their families and their communities do good, honest, and important work. My grandparents were subsistence farmers who grew tomatoes, peas, white and sweet potatoes, and corn. That's where we got our grits from, grinding the corn. Many Bahamians have memories of their parents and grandparents farming, especially in the Family Islands. And people who grew up in New Providence would remember the mail boats coming in, loaded with homegrown produce. That's right. So in generations past, farming knowledge and expertise might have been passed down informally. But if we truly want to turn farming into a robust and dynamic sector of the economy, we need to formalize education and training. That was the initial impetus behind the creation of the Bahamas Agriculture and Marine Science Institute. We haven't come close to realizing the potential of BAMSI, but it's time to start now. Yes. Earlier this year, we passed new legislation to improve BAMSI's capacity, allowing it to create new partnerships and agreements to expand the access and expertise available to its students. The member from South Eleuthera is just the man to lead the way forward, and he's going to tell you about the plans in more detail later today. But just to preview some highlights, We will be investing in both low-tech efforts, like school gardens and greenhouses, and high-tech modernization, like new equipment for food safety and technology laboratories, digital mapping of BIC's land portfolio, e-permitting for plant-based commodities, and online fisheries permitting through My Gateway. We are also investing in infrastructure, including funding for our feed mill and abattoir. That's the slaughterhouse. Abattoir, yeah. It's a slaughterhouse. That's how you know it, you know. No, it's abattoir thing, yeah, abattoir. Yeah. In addition, we will soon begin construction on agri-tech hubs on several family islands. Each will have a produce exchange, a fish and farm store, and a food processing community kitchen. These community kitchens will provide wonderful opportunities for food entrepreneurs to get their start. In addition, we are constructing a facility to host trainings that will empower farmers to improve their yields. Our budget invests in farmers with $500,000 in direct support. We are also supporting farmers and fishermen indirectly with duty-free exemptions on equipment and parts, including parts for repairs.
Yeah. Agriculture's back. Yeah.
With chicken a main source of protein in our diet, we are promoting a Bahamian poultry industry. But we know that new production won't happen overnight, which is why, in the interim, we are reducing duties on poultry and eggs. When it comes to our nation's marine resources, we are working to create an agriculture and fisheries development fund, which will provide grants and guaranteed loans to young Bahamians who want to enter the sector. We'll also inaugurate a series of fisheries training programs in the family islands. At this juncture, I would like to say a word about an announcement I made last week, which is that we are formally prohibiting the export of conch in commercial quantities at this time. Conch is an important part of both our culture and our economy. For years, there have been dire warnings from marine biologists about overfishing. Conch fisheries have perished in other countries. We're acting now so that we don't meet the same fate. Madam Speaker, more than 90% of what we consume in our country is currently produced outside of our country. Our food import bill runs to many hundreds of millions annually. That's a lot of money, you say. That's a lot of opportunity for Bahamian entrepreneurs, I say. That's why it is so urgent we invest in local food production, train our farmers and fishermen, and encourage our young people to launch new entrepreneurial ventures. Yes, we can lower the food bill for Bahamian consumers, reduce our dependence on foreign imports, and increase opportunities for Bahamians all at the same time. Madam Speaker, the potential for agriculture to go big brings me to the second priority of this budget, which focuses on growing our economy and making sure Bahamians have the education and training they need to take advantage of new opportunities. Let me start here with the youngest Bahamians. I said earlier that the size of your bank account should not determine the size of your dreams for your children. I believe that from the bottom of my heart and soul, that the reality is the COVID pandemic has been really hard on our children. Instead of learning and playing at school, they spend more than 2 years at home, and very often in homes experiencing all of the stress that comes along with a parent losing a job. We can't give them back these missing years, but we can do more to support them. We have allocated funding to conduct individual assessments and create individualized educational plans. We are going to work with teachers, guidance counselors, and community partners, and we are going to let our children know that they are what that they are what matters most. They deserve first and second and third chances, and they deserve to know that we are on their side.
Yes.
The member for Engliston feels as fiercely as I do about our Bahamian children, so I know their education is in good hands. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, the blueprint for change we shared with the Bahamian people before the election focused extensively on the economy because strengthening the economy is central to our nation's progress. Our beautiful country, people and culture are like no other, so tourism remains our #1 industry. We have moved quickly and aggressively to help tourism recover and expand. We are increasing room capacity, and the coming months will feature the reopening, both of the Hilton and Club Med in San Salvador.
Wow. Club Med.
The Grand Lucayan will undergo, as you have heard, a $300 million renovation by its new buyer, turning it into a sustainable luxury resort. We are signing up new high-profile sports and entertainment events, improving airlift, encouraging vacation rentals, and reaching out to new markets to attract visitors. In March, we announced a public-private partnership to design, build, and finance and operate several airports throughout the country. We have also adjusted the current regime so that Bahamians in the Family Islands investing in short-term rental property in the Bahamas can not only purchase building materials duty-free, but get furniture and appliances duty-free as well. To complement this effort, we will work with the board of the Bahamas Development Bank to develop a loan program for short-term rental property development. And of course, in addition, we have committed $50 million to working with Bahamian small businesses who can be an important driver for our economic recovery. Madam Speaker, I might have to, I might need to wear nice suits for these days, but I'll always be a Caribbean boy at heart. So one of the innovations that I'm most excited about is the creation of a Family Island Development Trust Fund. Which will be a sub-fund of the National Infrastructure Fund. We have allocated 10% of overall revenue collected in the Family Islands from property tax and road traffic fees for this fund. The $200 million will aid our efforts to make immediate and significant improvements to Family Island infrastructure. We also propose to leverage aviation-related revenue to create a fund for aviation infrastructure, which combined with the Family Island Development Trust will accelerate the reconstruction of Family Island airports. Madam Speaker, this will be a game changer for Family Islands. No longer will Family Island infrastructure improvements take a backseat to infrastructure improvements in New Providence. Tax revenue that is generated in the Family Islands can now be used to fund improvements there. This will not be a fund exclusively controlled by the central government, although the ministers of finance and works and local government would oversee the fund, supported by the appropriate technical officers. Local government will be invited to submit proposals for funding consideration, and the fund will also provide funding assistance. For the preparation of proper engineering and feasibility studies to ensure that investments represent proper value for money. In our medium-term fiscal framework, we announced our commitment to increasing the level of capital investment on an annual basis, as we firmly believe that the lack of investment in infrastructure is a critical hindrance to achieving robust growth. The legislative framework to accommodate the Family Island Infrastructure Fund already exists in the Sovereign Fund Act. Later this year, we will select a financial advisor to lead the first round of fundraising for the fund. These funds will be used for building or maintaining infrastructure in the Family Islands, including roads, seawalls, landfill sites, and any public infrastructure critical to development. The fund will also be a source of funding to local government districts, allowing them to purchase the capital equipment needed to ensure that the infrastructure is properly maintained. Madam Speaker, we have approved over $2 billion in new investments in just the last 8 months. That's a lot of new opportunities and revenue coming our way. But I want to emphasize that we have a new way of doing business. First, it is important to us to attract major, top-quality investments in the Family Islands, as opposed to more Nassau-centric efforts in the past. Second, we are working hard to make sure new investments have a positive and meaningful impact on the community in which they are located. We are looking at past agreements too, and a new compliance unit within the Bahamas Investment Authority will ensure that promises made to local communities will be promises kept. This is not an adversarial process. We are just committed to making sure that promises made to Bahamians on paper actually materialize in our communities as real and tangible benefits. In the past, concessions offered to investors have sometimes exceeded the economic benefits of the investment to the country. No more will this be the case. When we evaluate new investments, we are also paying attention not just to direct employment, but to spin-off opportunities for Bahamian entrepreneurs. We are also seeking compliance with transfer of knowledge programs, which are designed to ensure Bahamians are trained to hold skilled labor positions currently being held by foreigners. Beyond tourism, in investments, we are seeking significant interest. Beyond tourism, in investments, we are seeing significant interest from fintech and from industries who are eyeing the potential of Grand Bahama to become an industrial hub. In April, my government introduced a policy white paper that laid out a vision and a framework for establishing the Bahamas as a hub for digital assets. Digital assets made possible by blockchain technology are rapidly transforming the world's financial infrastructure. We believe we can leverage our experience and expertise in financial services and our thoughtful and transparent regulatory regime to encourage digital asset companies to locate here. We've already had significant success in this regard. This is a very exciting new industry. You will recall that at the dawn of the internet, there was a proliferation of new companies, some of whom went on to become tech giants, and some of whom failed or faded. It is not so different in the world of cryptocurrency. There will be crypto successes and crypto failures. This is a field with a lot of innovation and experimentation. That's what makes it so exciting. Our policy framework, though, allows us to attract legitimate companies who will operate in the best interests of investors and customers, keep out the bad actors, and provide educational and training pathways for Bahamians who want to participate in this new field. We will promote collaboration between the University of the Bahamas, the private sector, and the regulators to develop both certificate and degree level courses in this new 21st century industry. Madam Speaker, it's long past time to realize the potential of our orange, blue, and green economies. A new Bahamian school of visual, performing, and recording arts will unleash Bahamian creative skills. Help us attract world-class cultural events and highlight our extraordinary talents. We are attracting major sporting events to the Bahamas through our Sports in Paradise initiative. The Babe Ruth Caribbean Championships coming up soon. Carifta Track and Field Championships next year. The World Athletics Relays. The North America, Central America, and Caribbean Track and Field Championships to be held in Grand Bahama. All will be hosted in the Bahamas.
At least we got one member.
We are funding the Elite Athletes Program to increase support for Bahamian athletes and sporting programs. A new partnership between the Bahamas Maritime Authority and LJM Marine will offer more training opportunities for Bahamians in the maritime sector, which I spoke about earlier. The Merchant Shipping Act had not been overhauled since 1999. We rectified that with an updated merchant shipping bill that modernizes our legislative framework and ensures our shipping industry can be competitive, grow, and develop. I spoke earlier about carbon credits, protecting and conserving our seagrasses and mangroves. This will generate new opportunities as well. And we expect to see many young Bahamians choose to focus their studies and training in the marine and climate change fields. Madam Speaker, there's also enormous potential for clean tech ventures in renewable energy. We have allocated funding to reduce the government's carbon footprint through the installation of renewable energy systems throughout the Family Islands and increased the number of electric vehicles in the government's fleet. The immediate focus is the development of resilient solar PV installations in the Bahamas. Resilient PV is solar energy that is coupled with technology that allows it to provide power even during grid outages. We have begun our assessment of energy systems in Inagua, Maguana, Actons, Crooked Island, and Long Key. This was started weekend past. Public buildings there and in Andros will test out pilot installations of solar photovoltaic systems. We have eliminated import duties on lithium, ion, and lithium phosphate batteries. The batteries predominantly used for renewable energy. We've also simplified the process for bringing in renewable energy parts. Madam Speaker, our decision to lower the duty on electric cars received a great reception. A valid question was raised with respect to the duty rates of electric vehicle charges. They were not in the first list of duty exemptions, but we have made that adjustment and they are now included at a rate of 5%. We are serious about reducing our own carbon emissions, which is why we are on a path to switching from heavy fuel to cleaner, less expensive LNG. LNG gas is the cleanest of the fossil fuels. So we intend to join the many countries who view LNG as a bridge to a renewable future. And as I announced yesterday, BPL will provide about 60 megawatts of its power from a solar field by early next year. Our country is finally making progress on our goal of achieving 30% reliance on renewables by 2050. Madam Speaker, permit me to address the issue of imposing business license fees on domestic financial services operators. I said domestic financial services operators. There has been a suggestion that doing so may have violated the agreements that we may have in place with OECD. This is not the case. The concern arises in respect to the principle called ring fencing. This is where preferential tax rates are given to foreigners. The financial services industry, to attract these businesses to Bahamas, although the taxable activity is outside of the country. In other words, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, ring fencing, the principle evolved as a result of financial entities, services entities that are foreign-based, but home-based here in the Bahamas, and their activity is outside of the Bahamas. And because of the concern, and they're attracted here because we are not taxing them, and their tax is different from the other taxes. That became a concern of the OECD, and an intervention was made to correct that in December 2019, 1819. And as a result, I could say that it impacted our revenues by about $80 million. And when we reviewed the whole situation, we thought we needed to level the playing field. And entities who are doing business in the Bahamas, financial entities doing business in the Bahamas, conducting business in the Bahamas, and the activities are in the Bahamas, they should pay business license fees as any other entity. And so I just wanted to just explain what they call the ring fencing principle. Now, and as I said, in this case, where the concern arises, let's to explain what we're doing. We are imposing a business license tax on entities which do business within the Bahamas with Bahamian citizens and residents. It's where the entity's mind, management, and physical presence are here in the Bahamas. And we are ensuring that entities which are licensed to do business in the country pay business license fees. Yes, ma'am.
Chair recognizes the honorable member for East Grand Bahama.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Wasn't the issue that there was a different regime for those domestic banks and those foreign banks that are just home basing here, and that there needed to be an equal and the same tax system for all of the banks, regardless of whether they do business here or whether they just home base here. And the fee structure was set up to ensure that the same system applied to across the board, to those who were just home basing and to those who actually do business here.
I think, well, first of all, the concept of ring fencing arose because you had the activity of the entity not being conducted here. It was like the suitcase company,
Right.
or the what they call it, back in the day we used to call it the brass plate. They just put and they were here, and they were attracted here because they were not being taxed at all, and so they were being attracted to do business here, as we were what they call an offshore jurisdiction. That was also part of the tools to get rid of the offshore business. And so what they said that we had to tax those individuals here as well.
Right.
The mechanism for that didn't exist. And so creatively, the previous administration came up with how they would then tax the local banks by having a levy, and then from the domestic, the DIIS, they did an acronym. I'll tell you what it means in a minute. It just slips me. And so there was a regime set up to be able to tax them, but we're still falling short of what we would have lost. And so what we're doing is we are removing that, and that's introducing this business licensing for the local, and whereas, and it's just more than just the ring fencing. Ring fencing was just one component of the whole assault, because the what I call the brass plate company was considered to, they had the ability to shift profits. And then, we passed a bill to a fiscal presence, and the fiscal presence bill, and we also passed a bill to avoid what they call the shifting of profits between multinational companies, which for the purpose of avoiding taxes. And so it's a compendium of issues that this fell in. And I did have some conversations with the former Attorney General on this matter. I thought there was another answer to it, but we never got to dealing with it. But we are satisfied that we are not violating.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for East Grand Bahama.
Given that this regime would have been put in place to satisfy the international requirements, has there been any discussions on the change and whether or not it would create any challenges for us with those international recommendations?
My confidence that it doesn't comes from the fact that the technical team did explore whether it was or not, and they were satisfied that they were not. So they would have spoken to, I don't know who all they would have spoken to, but I know that they just come to me with it, because my first question when the matter was recommended to me was whether we were violating any arrangement that we would have with the OECD or the EU. And they assured me that consultation was taking place, and since we're just dealing with domestic, our own right to impose taxes on entities doing business within the Bahamas, with Bahamians and with residents, that excluded excluded us from having violated any arrangement we had. Madam Speaker, I would like to remind the House that we entered office 8 months ago. Right? But we met in place a regime, a financial service institution, to charge VAT non-resident clients. The feature of the VAT Act, if allowed to remain in force, would have destroyed the financial sector as we know it. We immediately amended the Act to protect the financial sector, so it would be absurd to believe that we would be knowingly do anything to negatively impact that sector. Just a closing on that issue. I now speak about the third priority that runs through this budget. That's security. With smart investments and innovative programs, we are seeking to increase security for Bahamians in our homes, in our communities, and at our borders. We're also seeking health security. In a world where the next COVID variant is always around the corner, we need the best protections from infectious diseases that an open economy can provide, and a stronger healthcare system so that Bahamians can receive quality medical care when it comes to this disease or any other. Promoting health security includes ongoing vaccination campaigns, a new wellness program, the catastrophic care fund I spoke about earlier, funding for a new hospital in Freeport, funding for repairs and renovations to clinics throughout our islands, and more. We also have allocated $500,000 for a new women's center.
Yes. Very good.
Which will help women coping with problems from violence to unemployment. And finally, we include strengthening our resilience to hurricanes and adverse weather events via smart investments in our infrastructure, planning, and expertise as a matter of national security as well. In that regard, we have already made progress with new building code standards designed for an era of climate change and adverse weather events. We've also agreed yesterday to renew the insurance with CRIF, subject to their coming to reassess the basis upon which they had some assumptions that they are now satisfied may be in error. And we hope to have a more reasonable response to risks and triggers for claims. And but it has been renewed, will be renewed either today or tomorrow. Our budget, Madam Speaker, makes significant investments in three core national security agencies: the Department of Corrections, the Royal Bahamas Police Force, and the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. We have allocated $6 million to fund the purchase of new vessels for the Defense Force. We have increased our capital allocation for our police so that CCTV and the spot shooter are fully funded. We have added funding so that we can recruit more police officers. Madam Speaker, over the last 4 years, the force was not able to sustain recruitment levels to replace retiring officers, with the result that the force is now short some 900 officers. The Minister of National Security is emphasizing training opportunities and will diversify staff, employ university graduates, and aggressively recruit officers until the force is at full strength. We've also added a substantial funding increase for urban renewal to expand that program's presence and outreach in our communities. Right now, Madam Speaker, we do very little to rehabilitate prisoners in the Bahamas. Indeed, we introduce them to violent prison life, do little to increase their skills, and then express surprise when so many are released, go on to commit further crimes. This is dangerous, this is short-sighted, and this is wrong. We'll use a public-private partnership vehicle to invest in the construction of a new prison complex, one which will offer more humane conditions and, for the first time, real opportunities for rehabilitation. It is just simple common sense that this will make all of us safer. Reducing recidivism increases public safety. Madam Speaker, as I stand here in this honorable House, I must confess, I'm amazed at the difference. I'm amazed at the difference that a single year can make for a country. 1 year ago, I said that the former government's budget presented a recipe for paralysis, not progress. It is true, of course, that COVID presented enormous fiscal challenges to countries across the globe. But other countries used the interruption to innovate. For example, Jamaica improved their exports via trading on Amazon's platform. Barbados launched its extended stay program to improve revenue. It was not inevitable that we should stagnate so completely. But we are making up for lost time now. Last week's budget communication was welcome news to Bahamians, investors, and creditors. It laid out a bold and ambitious plan for the next fiscal year. The accompanying legislation provided the government with meaningful tools to accomplish this fiscal year's plan. In my communication, I advised of an amendment to the Public Finance Management Act to ensure that all arrears collected go into the sinking fund to pay off debt. And I advise of an amendment to the Real Property Tax Act to simplify our collections effort. The total arrears for real property tax alone are about $800 million, 15% of GDP. We have dedicated this entire amount to pay down debt, along with other tax arrears, including VAT, business license, customs duty, or even immigration fees. Madam Speaker, this is a very aggressive strategy to manage our debt. The budget includes and assumes increases in revenue collections, particularly associated with improvements in VAT collections at the Department of Inland Revenue. As I have previously articulated in this House, there are many administrative challenges facing this agency, including limited staffing, lack of legislative certainty, lack of career paths for staff, and poor compensation. This budget seeks to address many of these challenges. In this budget, the department is provided with a budgetary increase of $1.5 million, largely attributed to increased salaries to allow for the recruitment and hiring of qualified staff to execute on the agency's mandate. We are already drafting legislation to institutionalize the department and provide it with the improved legal authority to execute its mandate of revenue collection. This, along with the reconstitution of a properly staffed revenue enhancement unit, is designed to yield significant improvements in revenue. Madam Speaker, as I reiterated in my communication last week, upon coming into office, this administration appointed a private sector debt advisory committee. The committee is charged with providing prudent advice to the government on its debt management strategy. We have already seen the results with the recent repo transaction at interest rates far below rates posted by the prior administration. A reduction in interest on borrowing from 8.95% to 2.4%, in my view, is indeed an important achievement. Over the medium and long term, our debt management strategy also includes increased use of carbon credits and green and blue financing to continually reduce interest rates. Many people expected us to raise taxes on ordinary Bahamians in this budget, but we could not ask the poor or the middle class to pay more at a time when the cost of living is making daily life such a struggle and when our economy is still getting back on its feet. We took a different path. We are going to manage our debt more wisely. We are collecting taxes owed, and we have an aggressive growth strategy. Madam Speaker, we are approaching our 50th year of independence. In honor of the courage and vision of our founding fathers and mothers, we are acting now to renew our country's promise. Madam Speaker, I draw my strength from the great people of this country. We are charting a course forward to progress. We are governing, not from fear, but from faith, a faith born out of the confidence we have in our people. We have taken steps to protect and lift up the poor, and steps to strengthen and grow our middle class. I want to close by reassuring the Bahamian people that I see the challenges you face. I know how hard it is right now. I'm not here to defend the status quo.
Right.
I'm here to change it.
Yes.
Together, we are going to walk this path of purpose together. May God bless the Commonwealth, and the people of the Bahamas.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Would you like to table?
I so move.
So move.
The bills.
Yes.
If I could obtain a second. I so move it. Could I obtain a second?
Thank you, Honorable Member. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for.
Oh,
Please, grandson.
thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I just rise on a point of clarification. There was and I didn't want to interrupt the Prime Minister, but the Prime Minister made a mention about a letter coming from Lightfoot Key and the previous administration then changing. I'll rest. My apologies. My apologies. Out west. This matter was addressed by the former Minister of Finance, Peter Turncrest, because it was a matter that was done during his tenure. It was addressed during a press conference, and if I could just read just a portion of his response. No, I just want to clarify. That's all. Just want to clarify. Can't leave it on the record. Just want to clarify. And
The chair recognizes the member for East Grand Bahama.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. And and I just wanted to read Peter Turncrest's response to the same issue that had arisen. And his response was the government of Bahamas made no undertaking to reduce any tax rate for any individual or any group with the announced decision to revert to the previous definition of home occupied properties. The Deputy Prime Minister at the time said during a press conference at the Ministry of Finance Wednesday, August 8, 2018, and I wish to table this.
Honorable member, are you tabling?
What is tabling for?
What is it that you're tabling?
One letter.
It is a press release that states the response of the then Deputy Prime Minister Peter Turncrest to the same allegation that was made. The Deputy Prime Minister, Peter Turncrest, the former member for East Grand Bahama, is not here to defend himself, and all we want to do is to
Order that the documents be brought up.
Response. That's all.
One letter and you reverse your position.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island, Romkey, and San Salvador.
See, what I understand is the member is attempting to rebut a point that I made. And the point I made was that when the poor cried, no response. But when a letter was received from some far place out west, there was a response, an immediate response, and relief was had. That's what I said. He's saying that didn't happen? Is that what he's saying, that did not happen?
The chair recognizes the honorable member for East Grand Bahama.
The Deputy, What I am saying is, you asked me what I'm saying.
No, but say, it's in a rebuttal.
Yes.
Okay, honorable member, I have the document. The document will be,
The document speaks for itself.
yes, the
provides
document is on the table.
response, and that's all I'm saying.
Yes, okay. Is there a seconder? The chair recognizes the honorable member for Central and South Eleuthera.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I rise this morning with a grateful heart, giving thanks to Almighty for allowing me to be here this morning. I am grateful to the people of Central and South Eleuthera who has placed their confidence in me to represent them in this place and to be a voice for their concerns. I would like to also thank my beautiful wife, Delia, and my son, David, for their patience and understanding. Their sacrifices are untold and unmatched. And it's my deepest hope that while I am constantly away from them doing the people's work, that I do so with honor, and that one day they will look back and be proud of their accomplishments and know that the sacrifices were not in vain. Mr. Deputy Speaker, today will demonstrate through the series of speakers that no government in history has ever given importance to agriculture that this government has.
That's right. Yep.
Today should be termed Agriculture Budget Day. Mr. Deputy Speaker, before I get into the meat of my contribution, I would like to take a few moments to congratulate Ms. Lynette Farrington, junior member of Central and South Eleuthera, for her outstanding contribution in this place. Undoubtedly, she has a bright future, and I commend her for a job well done. The young people who represented the various constituencies made a tremendous impact, and we should all salute them. I remember when I was in this place contributing to Youth in Parliament, representing my hometown, the constituency of North Eleuthera at the time. It was my involvement then that literally provided me the opportunity to stand here today. So as I reflect on the youth of our nation, I would also like to extend my congratulations to the graduating class of 2022, the students of BAMC, the University of the Bahamas, and the graduates of all high schools and tertiary education institutions throughout the country. Our young people have proven that despite the realities of COVID-19, disasters, and any force of opposition, they are indeed resilient, poised, and ready for the challenges of today and tomorrow. I want the youth of our nation to know that we are not blind to our obligation to them. We are not oblivious of our obligation to ensure that there is a future for them in the Bahamas, professionally, socially, and culturally. This is why this budget is so important as we, as a government, advance reforms to ensure the Bahamas is a country of growth and opportunity for them as graduates to look forward to their future after graduation. With your leave, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would also like to express condolences to the bereaved families of Central and South Eleuthera, to the family of Thomas Johnson of James Siston, Yvonne McSweeney of Rock Sound, Francis Thompson of Deep Creek, and two giant sports icons of Eleuthera, Mr. Michael Bang Bang Thompson and Mr. Dougie Smith. All of famous he was a Hall of Famer and right from my hometown of Rock Sound in Central and South Eleuthera. Mr. Deputy Speaker, men like Michael Thompson and Dougie Smith are irreplaceable. Their contributions to sports locally, nationally, and internationally are unmatched. I offer my condolences to the bereaved families in our communities whose lives are impacted by their deaths. We pray God's peace and their life and legacy lives on in our memories and actions to continue their great work. Mr. Deputy Speaker, death is an ever-present reality, and we must not forget the sanctity of life and take every opportunity to celebrate. At this time, I would like to wish happy birthday to another great icon in Central and South Eleuthera, Austin Knowles Sr., a renowned Hall of Fame recipient, recently celebrated his 86th birthday. We send our best to him and pray God's continued blessings on him. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we often say we save the best for last. But today, Mr. Deputy, I pause for a moment to pay tribute to a woman who is the reason I am here today. She was with me from day one, nurturing, and in many ways preparing me to be the man that I am. She remains my biggest cheerleader, and I send a happy birthday and love to my mother today in Spanish Welsh. Going first. Today's a good day.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I turn to the event of today, and I am overwhelmed with pride, and I am honored to stand here in this house. You see, the people that I represent in this place today are overwhelmed with joy. They, for the first time in 25 years, feel proud to be Family Island Bahamians that has the support of a government. I have said it repeatedly that something great is expected for us in the Family Islands as we are led by a Prime Minister who holds a Family Island seat, a Deputy Prime Minister who holds a Family Island seat, and the Prime Minister carved the position of Minister of Family Island Affairs and bestowed the full responsibility of Family Islands on me. And I also represent a Family Island seat.
Yeah.
You see, that something great is manifested in the 2022-23 communication as laid on the table by the Honorable Member for Cat Island, Rum Key, and San Salvador, the Honorable Philip Edward Bray Davis, and I proudly stand here to second this budget today. Mr. Deputy Speaker, while in no means diminishing the importance of the capital and the second city, today feels like a gold-letter day for Family Islanders who felt marginalized, neglected, and were simply an afterthought for so many years. Back in the day, they used to call us Out Islands. And then they changed the name to Family Islands to make us feel a little bit better. but today, I'm glad that this budget is Family Island concentrated.
Yes.
This Davis Cooper-led administration is not only thinking about the Family Islands, but in this first official fiscal budget of the administration, is investing heavily to improve the socio-economic conditions of the Family Islands, as the Family Islands can provide a significant contribution to the growth of our economy. In Central and South Eleuthera, Mr. Deputy Speaker, despite having to reside in Nassau for most of the week to complete my ministerial and cabinet duties, I am present every week in my constituency. In these past 8 months, we have laid the groundwork and begun to establish significant improvements in capital works and ancillary works to revive the economy and grow opportunities for investment and entrepreneurship. Mr. Deputy Speaker, during my time campaigning to become the Member of Parliament, I promised the people of Central and South Eleuthera 5 priority items. And you see, it's very important that I outline these in my budget communication, because the people in South Eleuthera has never had a minister to represent them. And the people in Central hasn't had a minister in over 30 years.
Wow.
So it's important to them that I speak to what the initiatives we have in our constituency, and we outline the good things that's coming in the next few months. Thank you. I could only make promises that I was certain I could lobby for and deliver. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I am pleased and proud to say that in 8 short months, because of the leadership of Davis and Cooper, I have begun to deliver on these promises and are working hard to fulfill them. Top on the priority list for Central and South Eleuthera, a topic heavily debated while I sat in the Senate and further exacerbated by the pandemic, I can say with confidence that Central and South Eleuthera will not only get the medical facility I promised, but beginning January 2023, 2 medical facilities will be built to meet the needs of the growing communities and residents, and will undoubtedly be a key selling point to re-engage investors and to solidify new investment opportunities. You see, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this Davis-Cooper administration had a bird's eye view during the pandemic of the challenges we were faced in healthcare. Through consultation with medical professionals, social enterprises, and economic advisors, they have formulated a plan, and one of the key areas of specific focus for the Family Islands is access to affordable healthcare, timing, and delivery of services. A step in the right direction. This past week, I traveled to Eleuthera with the Acting Minister of Health, a team of health professionals, and the technical staff to hold consultation and deliver the message in person on this administration's commitment to building those facilities. While I am happy to sing the praises for Central and South, as the Minister for Family Islands, I am excited to advise that in total 19 medical facilities will be built or upgraded throughout the Family Islands. No doubt you will hear a more detailed accounting from the Honourable Member of Tall Pines. But this is indeed welcome news for Family Islanders near and far, as access to health care is among the top concerns for residents due to cost of airlift during emergencies, accommodations in Nassau, anxiety of being isolated from loved ones, and the overall cost of health care. The way forward is inclusive, providing access to affordable health care in Grand Bahama, throughout the Family Islands, and also New Providence. Also on the list of goals to accomplish is economic empowerment. We have worked with various organizations to make this a reality. We have facilitated meetings with BAIC, the Bahamas Development Bank, and the Access Accelerator Program, who now has a permanent home at the Business Hub in Rock Sound, Eleuthera. These 3 organizations provide assistance with creating business plans, access to capital, and marketing in the form of grants and loans for startup businesses and improvements to existing businesses. For the second year, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we are building on a platform that we call the starting line. We offered BJC tutoring classes from January to April 30th while engaging high school students, but we specifically targeted adult learners who are in need of obtaining minimum qualifications for entry-level jobs that may be available. Once again, the program was oversubscribed, and we are happy to have engaged teachers and provide this benefits for students and adults. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the path to economic empowerment and the success may be different for each individual. However, this administration is evidently serious about providing opportunities for economic empowerment through home ownership. I would like to take this time to congratulate the member for Elizabeth, my old Senate colleague, for the countless hours of hard work that has gone into making the Pinecrest subdivision a reality. I thank her for her commitment to rebuilding the lives after those that were affected drastically by Dorian. Homes are being built both on the islands of Abaco and Grand Bahama. Central and South Eleuthera, you have not been forgotten either. In November of last year, the Minister of Housing and Transport, along with representatives of the Bahamas Mortgage Corporation and technical team, came to Eleuthera to assess several areas for the possible expansion of the Affordable Homes Program. I am pleased to say that before the end of June 2022, this month, the administrative team from the Ministry of Housing and the Mortgage Corporation and other partners will be in Central and South Eleuthera for the mortgage fair to assess potential homeowners, and along with the minister, we will break ground on a new affordable home division in Ocean Hole and Rock Sound. This member, good. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we must maintain a balanced approach to providing relief as far and as wide as we can. While we have a significant focus on agricultural lands and food security, the cries in the community of Hatchet Bay have been heard. Hatchet Bay, for the first time in many years, is being addressed. Their peculiar issue of being landlocked is one which is being addressed. The growth of that community is stagnant because no affordable available land for the expansion of the community is there. To this end, BAIC has agreed to transfer the ownership of 100 acres of agricultural land and industrial land to the Ministry of Housing.
Yes, thank you.
She will be in the neutral a long time. For the expansion of the community of Hatchet Bay.
Yeah.
You know, this member come up with a good name, Renaissance, for that new that new division, that new home she's building. And I've been thinking what name we could come up with. Because it gotta be good.
Okay.
This
It gotta be sexy.
so member, we got a few weeks.
We can sit down.
We can sit
talk.
down. But this housing subdivision will be developed and the land's available for development. This is the way forward.
I agree.
Providing opportunities to
Yes.
persons who's been neglected for many years.
Yes.
Providing affordable homes to persons who've not had access to homes.
Yeah.
And providing land ownership to persons, especially the people in Luthro,
Yes.
who's not had the opportunity for a long time. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this Davis Cooper administration is about action. The kind of action that speaks to rebuilding the psychological and emotional needs of our citizenry who is rebounding from 2 years of mental anguish and instability. Not only is this administration focused on providing access to home ownership, but it is providing additional avenues for economic empowerment by expanding the amount of exemptions on new construction, renovations, and even providing money back up to $40,000 in VAT payments. These measures established will promote home ownership, spark the construction of the industry, and provide flexibility for the pockets of homeowners. Another progressive strategy as laid out in our blueprint for change.
Yes.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, for far too long, family islanders have had to spend large amounts of money to travel back and forth to New Providence to validate marriage license, make changes and amendments to birth certificates, affidavits, and so on. Last week, at a roundtable discussion and training activities for new local government practitioners and administrators, Senator the Honorable Ryan Pinder, Attorney General, confirmed that his office, through the Registrar General, would implement a pilot program.
Excuse me, member.
Continue, honorable member.
For new local practitioners and administrators, the Senator Honorable Ryan Pinder, Attorney General of the Bahamas, confirmed that his office, through the Registrar General, would implement a pilot program to give access to the Family Islands, the same services as available at the Registrar General's home office in Nassau.
Very good.
This would reduce the need to travel and save money for families.
Yes.
In this season, we know all too well that this will be a considerable amount of savings on the purse. As a Family Island resident and the Minister for Family Island Affairs, I understand better than most the benefit of the decentralization of government services throughout the Family Islands, and it is a policy that this government embraces both in words and in action.
Yes.
Further, we will begin to institute hotspot zones at various parks throughout the constituency. And these hotspots will be free and open to the public, especially to young people that need access to internet services in order to complete assignments and conduct online research. Mr. Deputy Speaker, Madam Speaker, This administration is insightful.
Yes.
You see, on the campaign trail, one of the key points of focus was that of food security.
Members,
When we established this point, I had no idea that the Ministry of Agriculture, Marine Resources, and Family Island Affairs would be the ministry to which I would have been assigned. Talk about divine providence.
members,
During the campaign trail, it was evident that food security would be of the utmost importance to our citizenry over the next few years. It was clear to see that there would be some fallout in the agriculture sector globally, as many companies were closed for an extended period during the pandemic. The loss in revenue caused many companies to go out of business, and those who were able to stand strong lacked the capacity to provide enough food for the market. Currently, we can see this reality on the shelves of our food stores, as many of our favorite items cannot be sourced. Additionally, what foods can be sourced have increased in prices, as there are limits to what can be grown, packaged, and shipped in time to consumers around the world. I thought this was an important point to address to the residents, as access to healthy and affordable food is priority and is laid out in our blueprint for change. I will talk more about what is in store for food security further in my presentation, as not only will it be beneficial to the constituency, but to the entire nation. Madam Speaker, in addition to meeting the goals outlined while on the campaign trail, I said earlier that every week I'm present in my constituency. I continue to meet with the community leaders, heads of government departments, and nonprofit organizations to provide opportunities and solutions to long-standing issues throughout the constituency. I have ensured that I have met with every local government council in the district to hear their concerns, and I bring a collaborative approach to solving the outstanding issues. I have also met with and brought some immediate relief to the vendors at Potterski. We are continuing to work on a resolution to bring their major concern to fruition, but I have no doubt that this will be accomplished in short order. Madam Speaker, we held a public town meeting in March of 2022 to apprise the constituents of the work completed and projects that are anticipated. I was pleased that so many members of the business community and civic society were in attendance to voice their concerns and ideas as we move forward to grow our constituency together. I have partnered with the Cancer Society, the Ride for Hope, Zonta, BART, Kiwanis, and Wani Luthra in that effect. Through my ministry, we were able to also assist both government-operated high schools to distribute greenhouses. Again, we are focused on food security, engaging the youth, and we must do whatever is necessary and impactful, even in taking small steps. It also provides them with exposure to alternative methods of farming. Also in the constituency, I partnered with Kiwanis and other community organizations to ensure that children throughout Central and South Eleuthera had a great Christmas and Easter filled with activities. We also did a post-Mother's Day night, which was hosted, and the mothers from the entire constituency were invited to participate in a game night filled with fun prizes and surprises. My wife, Julie, and I were pleased to host this event and to bring a night of laughter, excitement, and joy to the hardworking mothers of the constituency. Madam Speaker, weather permitting, on June 18th, we will host a similar affair for the fathers in our constituency. And we also toured the packing houses in Central and South Eleuthera, and we repaired the vehicle which has been down for 4 years at the Green Castle Packing House. Further to reopening this establishment in Hatchet Bay, my ministry is excited to announce that in the next few months, a new building and multi-purpose center will be constructed at this site. The Cultivation Center will be the center for all agricultural activities in Central and North and South Eleuthera. This Cultivation Center at Hatchet Bay will be a model one-stop shop that will be duplicated in Family Islands, where there is a considerable number of agriculture and fishing investments. We will speak to this more in depth later on in my contribution. Madam Speaker, Central and South Eleuthera cannot begin to see an economic rebound if not for investments. I am pleased to say that in an 8-month period, we have signed a heads of agreement with Cotton Bay, and Windermere North Development will start soon. These two projects will create jobs in construction, provide avenues for entrepreneurial growth, and inject direct capital in the surrounding communities. Madam Speaker, as I reflect on the past several months, I am inspired by the strides that this administration has made in the Bahamas. We have been steadfast, we have been progressive, and we have displayed an unparalleled level of grit and determination during a roaring pandemic.
Correct.
This fiscal budget is a step in the right direction. This administration embarks on a mission to rescue this economy from the brink of a recession. Thus far, we have steered the course, and we are just getting started to provide the way forward.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, one week ago, the member for Cat Island, Rum Cay, and San Salvador laid on the table of this House the first official installment of the Blueprint for Change in the 2022-23 budget communication. Madam Speaker, the policies in this budget lay out a significant groundwork for economic advancement and development as we begin to move forward. Two areas in particular that stand out to me are the commitment to food security and Family Island development. A key source to creating a resilient economy is our ability to feed ourselves. The other key is equity. Bahamians throughout the length and breadth of this country want to feel included and empowered. The policies enacted should positively affect the majority of the people. This budget is reflective of that. Family Islanders feel like they can now have an equitable share in rebuilding our brand. These are goals we must accomplish as Bahamian households and businesses are feeling the pinch of soaring inflation due to the external pressures that countries all around the world are faced with and tighter financial restrictions. This plan seeks to ensure that there is a reduction of energy costs through increased use and access to renewables and climate resiliency. While there are more areas affected in this budget, these items are particularly concerning for Family Islanders. I am proud to say that we at the Ministry of Agriculture, Marine Resources, and Family Island Affairs remain resolute in revitalizing every aspect of this ministry. We believe in innovative growth, and throughout this presentation, I will demonstrate how my ministry intends to move forward to accelerate our growth, achieve the goals of making our nation food secure, and improve the lives of all Bahamians, especially those who live throughout our Family Islands. Madam Speaker, the allocation of portfolio in the Ministry of Agriculture, Marine Resources, and Family Island Affairs is vast. For the first time, specific focus is being placed on the Family Islands under a ministry. Under this portfolio are the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Marine Resources, the Department of Cooperatives, Department of Local Government, Family Island Affairs, and 3 approved authorities: the Bahamas and Industrial Corporation, Agricultural and Industrial Corporation, the Bahamas Agriculture and Marine Science Institute, and the Bahamas Agricultural Health and Food Safety Authority. Additionally, as the Minister of the Ministry of Agriculture, Marine Resources, and Family Island Affairs, agricultural crown land, the public markets, which include Arawak Key, Potters Key, and the Montague Ramp, regattas and homecomings and festivals all fall under my preview. Madam Speaker, my ministry also collaborates with international partners as we aim to fulfill our mandate. These partnerships include the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, IECA, the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, and the Caribbean Agricultural Research and Development Institute, or CARDI. Madam Speaker, the 2022-23 budget with respect to recurrent expenditure my ministry has proposed an allocation of $27,498,086, which includes subventions to BIC of $5 million and BAMC for $6,476,088, an increase of $250,000. And this demonstrates our commitment to education in agriculture and marine resources. We cannot say that we are committed to food security and we do not translate that into educating the youth and re-educating people who want to get into agriculture. Additionally, BAFTA will receive $504,000. And for the Department of Agriculture, $5,522,159 has been proposed. And for the Department of Marine Resources, $2,802,091. And the Department of Local Government, $26,200,058. Madam Speaker, the proposed capital allocation is $3,866,000 for 466, which includes food security capital development of $1 million. And other capital incentives include the construction of 2 slaughterhouses, one in New Providence, one in Eleuthera, the construction of additional office space at the Department of Marine Resources, the purchase of a vessel in Andrews, and the construction of an administrative building at GRAC. With regard to food security in the recurrent budget, $6,149,000 is proposed for my ministry to support our initiatives and projects related to government's food security agenda, an increase of over $1.1 million to last year's budget. Madam Speaker, the new construction of the abattoir is essential to food security. Farmers across the country have lamented on the state of the abattoir, access to the abattoir for slaughtering of the animals, and the cost of transportation from the Family Islands to Nassau for this purpose. In order to create a full circle economy, we have to take into consideration the health of the animals and the conditions in which meat is processed and packaged to meet national and international standards. Many of these farmers hope to be able to produce enough meat to sell to the various hotels, cruise lines, and other businesses. It is incumbent upon us as a government facility to implement safe and sanitary measures and to be an example in the industry. As you have heard the member for Cat Island, Rumpke, and San Salvador say last week, we are investing a considerable amount of funding in poultry production throughout the country. We believe that low-hanging fruit, such as poultry, can provide an almost immediate catalyst to stimulate food production in this country.
Yes.
This ministry, this government has a plan, detailed in part in the budget, to attract the best technology and processes to develop a full-scale poultry production operation. This includes a series of concessions that will be available, and these concessions include land concessions through BAIC and the Ministry of Agriculture, because both collectively has thousands of acres available for agricultural development, as well as electricity rate concessions to producers and direct cash subsidies as found in this budget for the support of poultry farmers and producers. A comprehensive concessionary framework will be outlined to ensure that we can attract the best prospects to ensure success in reasonable time frames for implementation. Realistically, the time frame to start to grow the sector of the economy will take another 6 to 12 months to see its full potential realized. In the interim, the Prime Minister, in his wisdom, has also provided for the reduction of duties on many food items, including poultry and eggs. It is our sincere hope that these savings, as outlined in the budget, will be passed on to the consumers. I want to say that again. It is our sincere hope
Yes.
that these savings must be passed on to the consumers. In the dailies just this week, a leading wholesaler applauded the government for its bold steps in reducing the duties on food items. Similarly, the leading poultry producer in this country also congratulated the government on its vision to grow the poultry sector. So, Madam Speaker, you see, as we grow one industry, we are providing relief for the common man in the interim, so that the cost of providing decent and wholesome foods is lessened as we see an increase in the overall cost of living. Now, I want to stick a pin in there too. Where you can, buy local. If you can buy eggs from a local poultry farmer, buy local. We must take a balanced approach to ensure that we support our farmers and while also supporting those that are less fortunate. Madam Speaker, this administration is not lazy. We craft policies and initiatives that are workable and provides opportunities for Bahamians to thrive in their own economy. We understand that these initiatives are a work in progress as we continue to grow. Madam Speaker, I recently had the opportunity to travel to Guyana with the Minister of Tourism, Aviation, and Investments to attend an agribusiness conference. And while at the conference, CARICOM stressed the 25 by 2025 initiative for each country to commit to reducing food imports 25% by 2025. Currently, we in the Bahamas produce less than 6% of the poultry that we consume. We are lagging behind our Caribbean counterparts. Guyana, they provide 100% poultry to their country. Jamaica, the same thing.
Wow.
Currently, we provide less than 6%.
I know you're gonna fix it, Minister.
We gotta fix. And you know, under some estimations, they say that this country consumes 78 million pounds of chicken a year. Inclusive of tourists, 78 million pounds of poultry a year. So we can fix it. We can fix it. We can fix it. We can fix it. We can fix it.
Yeah.
So when you hear the when you hear the Prime Minister speaking about poultry, and you hear me speaking about poultry, it's a direct approach on how we're going to grow this agricultural sector.
Yes.
It isn't a guessed approach. It's direct, it's targeted, it's statistical driven. So we're going to make it happen. In order to see this fruition, we need a targeted approach. And the major contributors are the private sector, the financial lending institutions, the farmers, fishermen, and policymakers.
Yeah.
We must all work together to make this a reality. Madam Speaker, this goal is achievable. It is not so unrealistic and far-fetched that it cannot be accomplished almost immediately. We are laying the political, the policy, and the financial groundwork, establishing the policies and making funding and concessions available to make this initiative achievable. Madam Speaker, we are seeking to reduce the proverbial red tape associated with farming and funding. We are creating bankable products that are at a minimal investment cost, driven by technology and accessible to not just men, but young people and women as well. And when I say bankable, I mean projects in agriculture that can be easily financed so farmers can have reasonable access to capital. These products include a significant investment in layers and in containerized farms. 2 weeks ago, a leading environmentalist brought to the country's attention the high cost of romaine lettuce that was bought in Cat Island. We hope to provide 2 of these container farms as modules on islands where farming is difficult and access to water and soil may be challenging. These containers can produce a specific amount of table
Honourable
greens and in some cases tomatoes and
Honourable
zucchini.
member, members cannot sit in the gallery.
This is a bankable product. The containerized farms are driven by technology, and if purchased through a loan, the bank has a guarantee of how much produce can be grown, and based on the market, how much can be sold and the owner can sufficiently repay his or her loan and make a considerable profit. Madam Speaker, in this budget, we are allocating $500,000 in direct support for farmers. This administration went a step further in indirect assistance programs. There will be duty-free exemptions for farmers and fishermen on equipment parts as well.
Yes. Very good.
You see, I'm a fisherman, so I can remember for, I can't say 40 years, because I ain't that old. But I can remember the whole time I was commercially fishing, that we had an issue with parts being 45% duty. Yeah. So if you were to import a Caterpillar fuel pump for $7,000, right? The duty you would pay on this one part would be roughly with VAT, $3,850. So there's one incentive to say that one fisherman or that one farmer almost $4,000. This administration realizes again that a holistic approach must be made in order to have a real, tangible effort on food security and lowering the cost of production for farmers and fishermen. This duty-free initiative will now be a direct savings to this farmer or this fisherman who would have to import this part. This administration is committed to eliminating the cost of duty on all such parts for repairs, considering that farmers and fishermen already had duty-free concessions for the upfront purchase of equipment and vehicles for their businesses. You see, persons that can't afford new try to patch up their engines or their tractors, but now they'll be able to do it at an affordable cost instead of having to try to borrow from the bank to buy new units. But Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Agriculture, Marine Resources, and Family and Affairs has a complement of over 800 employees. These employees are distributed throughout New Providence, Grand Bahama, and the various family islands. Madam Speaker, it is essential that the technical capacity of my ministry continue to be strengthened in order to achieve our goals and objectives as set out in our blueprint for change. Madam Speaker, the Policy and Planning Unit's portfolio continues to work hard to strengthen food security framework, to foster an environment for increased agricultural investment, to increase awareness in climate smart and resilient technologies, and to re-energize the agricultural sector. In this fiscal year, the Policy and Planning Unit will complete the structure for the Agribusiness Department as outlined in our Blueprint for Change. It will continue to collect valuable statistical data to drive the policy decisions of the ministry and center its focus. The Policy and Planning Unit will be adding a cadre of qualified experts to build its technical team as we drive our way forward. Madam Speaker, the Gladstone Road Agricultural Center, or GRAC, is a foundation of agricultural development in the department and speaks to our focus on food security. It is a farm of over 200 acres designed for test trials of crops, livestock, and pasture. The techniques and training employed at GRAC are methodically transferred to the local farming community to give them the opportunity to improve their own farming skills and practices, to stay abreast of modern farming techniques, and more importantly, to ensure industry best practices are being employed for sustainable development, improved availability for food, and the economic enrichment of farmers and home processors. GRAC has four main components, which is the Natural Swine Breeding Center, small ruminants for crops, and tractor services. The objective of NSBC is to assist with the development of swine production in the country. This is being accomplished by the coordination of the Breeding Center, the Resource Center, demonstration of husbandry care, extension services, and farm inspections. And we're also looking at ways how we can incorporate building the swine industry within our country through concessions as well. So we'll be able to expand more on that in the upcoming fiscal year, but we're hoping to drive different sectors to ensure that we have this holistic approach in the agricultural sector. Madam Speaker, NSBC is mandated to assist with providing assistance to the local farming community through the training of farmers. Other areas of focus include farm inspections and the provision of improved breeding stock, thereby improving the quality and the productivity of the national herd. Additionally, the NSBC further demonstrates the state-of-the-art housing, design, and equipment to sensitize the farming community on technologies that help to decrease losses and operational costs. Some examples of these technologies include environmentally controlled maternity ward for pigs, farrowing crates with raised floors, and anti-crushing bars to reduce piglet mortality and morbidity. The NSBC also demonstrates a waste management system that is designed to reduce the negative impact of pig farming on the environment. The waste is collected in sealed pits and separated into liquid and solid components to later be used as soil amendments in crops and forage fields. Madam Speaker, the Gladstone Road Agricultural Center is also home of the National Small Ruminant Herd, which is sheep and goats. We are pleased to announce that in this month, we increased our equipment through the purchase of 2 corral systems, which are to be used as part of our inventory control system and animal treatment system. The third area of focus at GRAC is the crops section, which exists to demonstrate the improved propagation and cultivation practices to the farming community. Discussions were at hand in the past for the commencement of the land preparation process at GRAC for the establishment of new orchards. Today, we can report that this exercise has commenced for the input of groves of mangoes, avocado, guava, coconut, and citrus. Sugar apple is also up as well. So far, we have established 3 acres of native mangoes, which will be grafted to improve quality mangoes. In addition, we have established 1.5 acres of avocado, 1 acre of soursop, and germinated 100 sugar apple plantlets. We hope to continue with the planting of the remaining fruit trees. In addition to adding value to the property at GRAC, the establishment of the assorted tropical fruit tree orchards is to demonstrate the economic viability of fruit crop production and also accessibility of propagation material. We will also promote and encourage linkages processing to add value and expand the market of tropical fruit production. We will establish a farmer field school program where the farmers will be exposed to propagation and production of vegetable seedlings and fruit tree liners, thereby reducing production costs for aspiring and established farmers that are challenged with starting seedlings on their own. In addition, Madam Speaker, we propose to erect 2 greenhouses and 2 shade houses for the propagation of seedlings and hardening of established fruit trees under a controlled environment. The greenhouse will also be used to demonstrate hygienic propagation methods of seedlings and establish fruit trees for backyard gardeners and farmers alike. Shade houses will be used for the hardening and established fruit trees. Madam Speaker, as I continue to speak about GRAC and how all this intertwines, this speaks to how all of this pushes towards food security. So it's important that we show how we support farmers at GRAC, how BEMC will play an intricate role, how BIC will assist us in these different ways and provide access and concessions to assist farmers. I hear a lot of farmers speak about seed banks and seedlings and where they can get access to those. So here at GRAC, they can now be able to go get seedlings. Minister, you could go get some stuff in your backyard.
For some of my schools.
And some of your schools. So this is how we incorporate communities and fight food security with our communities. So, Madam Speaker, the department continues to encourage and educate the public through its backyard garden initiatives. And many members have taken advantage of the backyard garden kits and been able to integrate them through their communities, through their schools, through their constituency offices. The department will continue with this distribution throughout the Bahamas. And we wish to remind the people that it is indeed good to grow.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, GRAC continues to provide land preparation services through the Tractor Service Unit. And we also plan to extend the assistance of land preparation to farmers to 3 additional family islands, which include Eleuthera, Exuma, and Cat Island. This technology will increase the use of machinery and technology in farming with the objective of increasing productivity, meanwhile reducing the cost of production for farmers. This initiative includes the purchase of wheel tractors, room disc, ridging body, and a bush hog mower. It represents an investment valued at approximately $1 million. Madam Speaker, under the Department of Agriculture, my ministry also has a responsibility for animal control. As we continue to take animal health, safety, and control seriously, we have also provided BARC with a subvention in conjunction. We have also provided the Bahamas Humane Society with one as well under our portfolio. We have also appointed 2 animal control wardens to facilitate animal control in New Providence. Madam Speaker, as you can tell, my ministry's top priority is food security. We realize that food security exists when all people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, to safe, and to nutritious food that meets their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. Our programs will foster greater economic stability, offer more support to farmers, and provide for long-term health and establish programs for the empowerment of women and youth. Incentives will be provided to encourage and train farmers in the use of modern agricultural practices with modern technologies. Much focus will be placed on the development of tropical orchids, production of indigenous crops to provide starch substitutes, inclusive of ground provisions such as sweet potato, cassava, and breadfruit, and processing varieties of tomatoes, peppers, and other fruits and vegetables. Madam Speaker, my ministry has revamped the initial concept of the agro-village. It will now establish the Cultivation Center, a facility which accommodates all things agriculture, be it proposals, be it training, be it programs, sales, and more. This center is intended to promote greater interaction between our technocrats and our farmers, be they hobbyists with the enthusiasm and interest to soar to a higher level in the agricultural sector, or the growing established businessmen in search of innovative applications to simply help them improve their product. Madam Speaker, we envision that this cultivation center to be a system of agricultural innovations that will be used to resolve the fundamental issues affecting food production. The center will be located at GRAC. One will be located at GRAC, and the project's mission is to also facilitate the enabling environment for the modernization of the food and agriculture system in the Bahamas. As it relates to the construction of the cultivation center, Madam Speaker, my ministry procured 2 Butler buildings for the project, one that will be in New Providence and one that will be piloted in Eleuthera. Construction is well underway with this project that is estimated to cost the government into some $2,398,000. Consultants are expected to be in the country in June 2022 for a scoping mission where they will visit the islands of New Providence, Grand Bahama, Abaco, and Eleuthera. Madam Speaker, as the Member of Parliament for Cat Island, Rum Cay, and San Salvador indicated in his vibrant budget communication, food security is a fundamental need of our nation because it not only reduces poverty, but aids in employment creation and secures economic empowerment for our citizens. It is a long-term venture that requires much investment, but I am so happy that our Prime Minister foresees the significance of its return. Earlier on, I spoke about the exciting ventures for Central and South Eleuthera, and my ministry is keen on recreating those ventures in other islands. These cultivation centers will be situated within a reasonable distance from the major farming communities. We will each comprise a food exchange, a fish and farm store, and a food processing kitchen. Initially, 3 community kitchens will be constructed on Andros, Cat Island, and Eleuthera, outfitted with processing equipment and staff to act as the prototypes for the remaining communities. Madam Speaker, these community kitchens will stimulate and encourage the growth of entrepreneurship as they target women and young persons who are interested in creating their own small businesses. So these kitchens that we're going to install in Family Islands, and some has already been ordered, we use our full budget, provide contracts to persons interested in co-packing, provide fully equipped venues and technical assistance to entrepreneurs requiring a phase of their operation completed. For example, the puree of fruits, extraction of oils, the dehydration of fruits, vegetables, spices, seafoods, etc. Allow for various forms of packaging, and allow for farmers to mill corn and sieve to their preference of several degree of coarseness, from fine cornmeal to coarse yellow grits. Madam Speaker, we will work assiduously hard to ensure the construction of the first community kitchen before this calendar year ends. The processing of food products will commence immediately, utilizing excess agricultural products from BAMC and other associate farmers. During the first year, the community kitchens will concentrate on improving their products, ensuring staff are properly trained in processing and use of equipment, on conducting consumer product testing at major food stores, and on supplying products for local food stores, hotels, and eateries. During the second year of production, we hope to identify or select a product with export marketing potential, conduct trials, test markets, and present recommendations for specific automated equipment for mass production. Madam Speaker, the benefits of investing into these community kitchens are enormous, as they will support the growth of activities such as utilizing excess agricultural products that will minimize post-harvest losses, allowing the farmer to increase his earnings. You know, we've spoken about this a lot of times. I remember even back in the day, you'd see this big pile of tomatoes. I think in Grand Bahama, I think it was you, Minister Sis, who seen this big pile of tomatoes in Grand Bahama and said, you know, what are we going to do with these tomatoes? And they say, just let them rot because they can't sell them. So for farmers who can't sell tomatoes because they didn't have access to a market at that time, will be able to now process these products. So we're not just looking at growing, we're not just looking at harvesting, but we're looking at adding value to products so that we have no wastage along the product line. Full circle economy. Contracting farmers to grow specific crops and ensure that these certain processing varieties are made available for the major portion of the year. These will also add value to products that are wholesome, healthy, tasty, interesting, and cost-effective. That's Jamaica. Spicy in Jamaica. Let's get it right. Creating businesses to support the work of the community kitchen, such as gathering of indigenous crops, such as shelling and freezing of tamarinds, the collection, barking, and preparation of coconuts, and the collection of indigenous berries, sea grapes, guavas, plums, and others. These will also develop programs to interest women and youth into establishing their own businesses. We will also encourage the establishment and usage of byproducts for the manufacturing of bags, soaps, skin creams, lotions, jewelries, and etc. They will also decrease the dependency on imports and encourage product substitution and the greater use of local manufactured products. And lastly, they will provide products for the National Food Bank. Madam Speaker, this is the way forward. Yes.
Madam Speaker, before the minister enters another subject in his presentation, maybe it's the best time now to take the lunch break and return at 3 o'clock when he'll be able to continue.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Is there a seconder? Second. Thank you, honorable members. It has been moved and seconded that the business of this House be suspended until 3 p.m. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. The business of this House stands suspended until 3 p.m.